As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. Hey, welcome to All Pro Dad Podcast. My name is Ted Lowe, and I'm your host. Each week on the podcast, we take a look at just one question. We talk about what the experts say. We talk about what we've gotten right occasionally, most of what we've gotten wrong, and we leave you with just one powerful but simple pro move. Today, I am joined with Bobby Lewis. Bobby,
hey, what's going on?
Welcome. Glad you're here, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
As always. Tell our listeners a little bit about what you do here at Family First.
Been working here at Family First for about 2 years, write a lot of content, all pro dad articles that come out in your inbox every single day, a lot of videos, and then the podcast stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
And you and your wife, Jocelyn, have been married for
15 years. You got 3 little kids.
3 little kids. And Bobby, you and I both are very excited with our very special guest. He can skateboard on his hands.
Yeah. Well, I can't.
Yeah.
Can you?
No, I don't know anybody that can.
Just
his
one
name
person.
is Dale Alexander. He's actually a money expert who can ride on a skateboard on his hands. And we will put that in the show notes. Thanks for being here.
It's a small
See you next time.
conference.
Dale, we're so excited. Your resume is so long, but I think what I want people to hear the most is just your heart and your passion for talking about money in a simple way. Every time I'm around you, it's contagious, your passion for this topic. You know, as our producer was saying earlier, it's a singular vision for you. So thank you for that. And we're so excited. Today, our question of the week is, what should every dad know about money? And I know you're going to jump in, but I've got some fun questions to ask you first. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. What was your worst purchase?
Oh, man. This is just boring. A 3-button banker suit. I got talked into buying this suit with 3 buttons. This is kind of a nothing, but to me it infuriated me so much because it just wasn't me. And the person said, "This is what you want. This is what people wear now." And it was this awkward 3-button suit. It just wasn't me. I'm not saying they're bad, but for me that wasn't what. And it drove me crazy because it wasn't the highest price suit I've ever paid, but it was the most expensive suit I've ever bought because I didn't wear it. I actually gave it away to a charity, and it drove me crazy. My wife and I we're so tight, and it just drove me nuts. But a suit, I know that's boring, but it is. A suit.
I bought myself, as a youth pastor, making $14,000 a year, I bought myself a jet ski. So that's a little bit more regrettable. And I was like, wait a minute.
Did you live by a lake or no?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it was one of the stand-up kinds, though. So I had so much fun on it, but I regretted it. Hey, what do you remember about your dad and finances and what your dad taught you?
I was very blessed to have a father that I was just so blessed to have a tremendous man as a father, and my mother too. If I tell people, if I could be 1/10 of what Warren Alexander was, 1/10, I've done well. I remember Mom one day in the living room to talk about Mom, and Dad, of course, was the great example of all this. She said, "I just remember one time we didn't give to our church, and our car tore up, and it was just the same amount of money to repair that car as what we should have given to our church that month." I'll never get where I was standing when my mom said that lesson. So you've heard more is caught than is taught. So we're always catching things, just little things, a random comment my mom said in our living room, but my dad lived that. My dad taught, I wrote this thing called What My Dad Taught Me. And there's 100 things on a sheet of paper that my dad taught me. And money and giving was all wrapped up in that. I was very blessed to have him.
Yeah, that's really cool because not every dad or not every person that's listening probably had that experience. So it's really cool that you have. And I had a good dad. My dad was an accountant, so he taught us a lot of money stuff. I'm hoping that the people who are listening who maybe didn't have that experience can learn from you today. You can share some of that knowledge.
Can I address that? Because if you're watching this, there are a lot of people that'll go, "Well, I didn't have that." Most every person, when I speak about my lesson we're going to get into, most every adult says, "Where's this when I was 18? And our parents never talked to us about money." Can I say there's a reason that they didn't? It's not their fault. We talk to our kids about a lot of things, sex and careers and ethics and morals and things like that. That's why I call the book The Talk About Money. But when it comes to money, what are you going to talk to your kids about? Because most of us weren't taught well, weren't taught right. What do you do? And you need to do money right. And your kid goes, what'd you do, Dad? I don't do anything. Or you need to get it in stock or mutual fund. Well, what do you do, Dad? I just don't, I've got it in a jar. You're not going to bring that up of something that you feel like you're failing at. So that's why when you say our parents never taught us about money, most of them didn't know what to say. And that's okay. But I'm trying to solve that. I'm trying to give parents a lesson, the talk, that you can just go through this with them and not have that experience with your children.
How did this become your singular passion? I mean, I know you got lots of passions, but how did you become so passionate about helping dads and parents to help their kids with money?
It's a great question. No doubt God laid this love of studying money. It's so tangible. When I was 19, 20 in college, I had this passion to study money, to study. I loved the study of what to do. See my teeth? Yeah. I loved getting the study of what to do with money. And if you look at the tangent point, the paths of my life, everything that I've done, I say my steps have been ordered and ordained. My life has been ordered. The things in my life, I was built. My parents they were educators. I've spoken to kids, been a junior youth advisor, lead worship, speak, love writing, love studying money, CFP. And it's all led me to writing a book and speaking to young adults across the country about money. No doubt about it, God put this passion in my life. This is why I'm here. I had a company for 29 years. I still run it. I sold it 2 years ago. God knew 30 years ago, you're going to start a company, you're going to sell it because this moment in the country needs you. And I think this lesson that I got sent through him, I think it can change a generation's saving and giving habits. I know it's why I'm here.
So I can tell you're passionate about this, and I love it. I really like soaking in this like secondhand passion from you. But there's got to be guys out there who are like, whatever, like money is money. Like I make a lot of money and it's fine. It's always there. Why should dads get serious about this? What is it about money that dads need to actually focus in on?
Oh, I don't want to be a naysayer and get negative, but if you just study where our country is financially, I mean, the average 401k for a 54 to 65-year-old, the average is $207,000, and the median, which means half have more and half have less, is $71,000. So people need to get serious about this issue, and I'll just leave it at that. Things are not going to get probably cheaper. Yeah. It's hard in the world, so you need to focus on what you have. Don't think I'll have it in the future. Work on this. Determine today what kind of life you want to have, down the road. Don't trade, as my pastor said, don't trade what you want ultimately for what you want now.
How do you think it impacts fatherhood? Like, how does it change us as a dad if we're doing it great and if we're doing it lousy?
Money?
Yes.
Because over half of our marriages end in divorce. This lesson that we're going to talk about is the most important life decision certainly a young adult will ever make, but getting money right is one of the most important life decisions we get right or wrong. And when we get it wrong, the weight of financial stress, the weight of life, it affects this is not debatable. It affects our performance at work. It affects our physical life. It affects our spiritual life, certainly our relational life. And everything, the things that we see on social media are telling us to get more, to keep more, to hoard more, to serve ourselves more. And we're in this rat race. And the problem is what we're looking at on social media is highlight reels. Listen, all we're seeing is highlight reels. And it's not true. And we think all of these things that we are seeing are true. Well, my job isn't, my salary isn't this, our vacations aren't this, my wife is not this, right? My children aren't this. And this is tearing us up financially, relationally, spiritually, emotionally, parentally. It's tearing us apart. And we're chasing stuff that's not true. We're chasing highlight reels, and that's not real. And so we're chasing, it's like a black cat in a dark room looking, a blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that's not there. We're chasing something that's not there. Have you ever seen a great trailer for a movie? And you go see the movie and it's terrible.
Right.
it's because all you saw was the best of it, the highlight reel.
Yeah.
It's not true. So that's why knowing what you want, you cut through all this minutia that the world's sending us.
Yeah, I heard a quote once. It was a dad talking to his kid, and I don't remember how old the kid was, 8, 9, elementary school. And he went up to his dad and says, "Dad, is $50,000 a lot of money?" And the dad's answer was great because it is until you make it. And I was like, "Ooh,
I'm so going to steal that from you."
It's a really good
That
quote.
is so good.
Because eventually, like, the dad aspired to make $50,000, and then he did, and he goes, "Well, 60 sounds great." And then, 70 sounds great. And like, you're always chasing more and more and more. But it's probably a better lesson for the dad to teach that kid, what do you do with the $50,000? I don't know if he taught the kid that lesson, but I heard the quote.
Wow, that's a great quote.
Dale, you say in your book that someone's look is not necessarily the same as their reality. What do you mean by that?
So I love starting off my lesson asking young adults in auditoriums, if you look rich, you probably are rich. And let me start by saying, being rich has nothing to do with money. You can be homeless and be rich. Rich in good health, rich in having a lot of friends, being at peace with what you have or don't have. That's rich. Wealth is what you think of people with money. But let's just say, if you look rich, you probably are rich. And that's not true. Typically, the wealthier you look, statistically, the poorer you are. People go broke trying to convince you that they're not broke.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that funny?
With a credit card.
With a credit card.
Yeah.
And so the wealthy people don't typically drive around in retirement plans. They're normal people that make you would never know, this is why I say that, you would never know the average millionaire in this country. You would never know who they are. They're normal people that make, all we see is the flashy top half of 1%ers. But the average millionaire they drive average cars, they make normal money, they just spend abnormally less of it than everybody else.
One of the stats you had in the book, which I read, and I thought it was really good, this stat jumped out at me. It said 44% of Americans could not cover a $400 out-of-pocket expense. And it got me thinking about it. Is that because of spending habits? Is that because of income habit? Like, what is it that you think equates to almost half the country not being able to find $400 to cover something today?
Just unawareness. When we're unaware of, I've said this, the drift and the world's trying, busyness and unawareness. We're just unaware of how we spend our money. Mm. And every day we go by little things. It's little, death by 1,000 cuts, pegged to death by a chicken. It's little tiny things all the time that have you drifting in life financially, drifting in life relationally, drifting spiritually, drifting parentally, right? Tiny little things that we're never aware of. And so lots of those are a whole life of that. You end up in a place that you don't want to be. Little things. You just have to stay aware, certainly, of money.
Yeah.
So is that, Dale, if you were talking to the person and saying, okay, you've drifted, you look up, you're going, whoa, I'm 4 hotels down from, that used to be our thing, is what we would be playing in the ocean with the kids, and I would look up and we're 4 hotels down. How did
you never realized when you were drifting.
You never realized where you're drifting. So let's say someone looks up and they're 4 hotels down right now.
That's good.
What do you say to help them get that back on track? Give us some application.
So what I teach young adults, if you didn't start out doing that and you say, Dale, I've drifted, what do I do now? There's 2 things that you do. Number 1, from this moment forward, every dollar that you make coming in your house, every new dollar coming into your house, what's that mean? Every raise at work, every bonus, every garage sale proceeds you have, every car loan, every loan you pay, that's new money coming in your house. Would we agree?
Mm-hmm.
Right. From now on, from this moment on, you're never taking more than half that. Never taking more than half that for the rest of your life. And take that and do the 70-20-10 or invest it and give part of it away. You can read this and figure out what to do with it. But, never take more than that. Get to some seasons maybe where you get, this is a hard word for Americans, content.
Yeah.
Content. Mm-hmm. Maybe this year, hey, I'm getting a raise, Cameron, I'm getting a raise. Let's don't take any of it this year. It's not fun. That's why you got to know what the vision is, what the goal is, right? Yeah. Where to paddle to for the drift, right in the ocean. You got to know what the goal is. But get content and don't take any of it for a while. Yeah. The second thing that you do is the money that you save, you've got to get it working hard. And that's in stocks of great companies of the world. And you can do that through mutual funds. You should ask why, because long-term, the stock market, great question, is Dale, in the stock market risky? Mm-hmm. The difference in understanding that question, is the stock market risky? Is the difference in maybe one day being able to retire, maybe, or having so much wealth that you have a room of advisors, your planners, your accountants, your attorneys, your foundation people, figuring out where you're going to deploy it. It's the difference in understanding the question, is the stock market risky? Mm-hmm. The wealthy know this and the broke hate this answer. It's not hard. Getting money right is not hard. There's a lot trying to make it impossible. So when you understand what's coming at us, it's easier to change when you know where the bullets are getting fired from. Yeah. But understanding it, getting it right is really not hard.
So you're telling me a guy who skateboards on his hands is okay with risk? Is that what you're telling me?
I like
you good with that?
I wouldn't even have a helmet on.
So Dale, for the guy listening saying, whoa, stock market, how does that start? How does that begin? What's a first step?
Great. Thank you for asking that question. And I talk to people and they'll say, hey, I've got money saved. And I go, where do you have it? And they say, a bank savings account. And I'm going, just listen to this. I teach kids, this is important to understand, is the stock market risky? It is, it isn't. It depends on time. Mm-hmm. And to prove this point, this is a hugely important point. Take $1 and put it in 3 places. The stock market, that's risky. A bank, good, because it's safe. Yes. And put it in a jar and put it underneath their mattress. Good. It's really safe. Mm-hmm. And to really see the difference, let's go back to 1926, and this is all in the book. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to 1926 to really see how different this gets when they started keeping records of the stock market. $1 invested in the stock market today is worth over $56,000. Mm-hmm. $1 invested in a bank, good, because it's safe, yes, is worth $22 on the same relative scale, $22, not $1,000. You see where this is going?
Yeah, right, yeah.
And if you put it in a jar and put it underneath your mattress, it would have to be worth at least $16 because stuff gets more expensive, which is called what? Inflation. Your money has to work for you. Well, Dale, what about Russia? And what about global warming and the Ukraine and the Middle East? Fair. All right, well, let's go back and look at the worst events in world history. When people thought the world was over, World War II, JFK, every major, event, 9/11, COVID, you can't even tell where those events happen in the history of the stock market. Because of this, the stock market is yo-yoing up a flight of stairs. It is yo-yoing up and down, up a flight of stairs. Yeah. Historically, it's always done that. Will it always in the future? I don't know, but that's what it's done historically.
So what's that first step? Like, what's that first practical, I want to, Dale, I believe you. I want to do this. I want to,
because this would have been great to know 20 years ago, but I'm not in 20 years ago. I'm in today.
And I don't just mean to give a shameless plug, but in the at the talkaboutmoney.com, if you go to the resources, there's I wrote basically a get started guide. The first thing to do is there's articles. What is a mutual fund? You've got to start in a mutual fund. Let investment managers take tiny, small, $10 from a birthday card. There's no more very few minimums on mutual funds anymore. $20. And you send it to a mutual fund that invests in hundreds of companies' stocks managed by investment managers. And they're usually Harvard and Duke MBAs. And they're studying companies that put your money in and sell. And they take this is how billionaires invest. Take small dollar amounts, give it to smart people, and let them diversify it, put it in mutual funds. And that Get Started guide on my website has articles from Dave Ramsey and Fidelity, how to pick a mutual fund. And everything is there. Click to open an account. I'm not a registered advisor, so I can't make money on anybody, but I teach people how to actually get in these things and what does it mean. It's not hard, but start studying mutual funds, and that's what it is.
Another thing that jumped out to me from your book, it was just a super interesting read about the power of compound interest. And one of the things that I teach, or I'm going to teach my kids when they get a little bit older, is if you start investing at 18 years old and you invest, I think you said until 28, so 10 years, your first 10 years you're making money, and then you never save another dollar. But if you put it in the right place, it'll be worth the same, if not more, than if you only started at 28 and saved for 40 something years, which I blew my mind. I was like, how is this possible? How does math work that way? But it's the compound interest principle.
This is a great point. And people think compound interest, well, how do I go get compound interest? It's not something, compound interest. It's an action that happens on money. Compound interest just means money makes money, and the money makes more money. Mm-hmm. It's the effect of taking a little bitty bit of snow on the top of a mountain, and you roll it into a ball, and it gets bigger, and the ball gets bigger, and it gets bigger, and it gets bigger, and then you kick it down, and it's the size of a house when it gets down to the bottom. Yeah. It's compound. The growth compounds on top of the growth. To your point, I use an example of a 22-year-old saves all three of them, let's say $2,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Forget the number, $2,000 a year for 9 years. Never put another dime in. And the second one starts after 9 years, and that's called, by the way, pay now and play later. Mm-hmm. The first one plays now and pays later. They play for 9 years, start investing to have the same dollar amount, to your point, at the end of their working life. They have to invest for 35 more years that the only one did for that 8 years. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because they put so much money in up front. The money is earning more than the payment. The second one is manually having to make. Yeah. It's not magic, it's time. Yeah. And so young adult, and if you're listening to this and you're 40, man, it's too late for me. You're going to say this at 60, the same thing you said, well, I wish I'd started when I was 20. If you're 40, you don't get to 60 and go, I wish I'd started when I was 40. I can predict the future. If you don't start, you're going to say that at 60. Yeah. If you're 40, you might have 50 more years to live. It's always the best time to start investing is now.
Today.
Love that.
Amen.
Today, yeah.
Dale, don't you, I want to charge it. See, usually when I start talking about money, I start shaking. I don't love it. It makes me want to go spend some money. It makes me want to make myself feel better with things. But no, you frame it in a way that's so positive and so clear. So thank you that.
And I do want to ask you one more thing, because we talk about like the power of saving and, you know, making your money work for you. But one thing that you mentioned in another episode that we were doing about teaching your kids is the power of giving. And if you're a dad and you're in that mode where you're like, I got to scrimp and save every buck because I don't know if I'm going to, you know, be able to pay this next week or pay this, a month from now. And you came at them and said, yeah, start giving money away. How many dads or how many guys look back and you say, you're crazy. I don't have anything to give away. Is that something that you get pushback on? And why shouldn't we push back on that?
You know, it's funny. Most people say, I know I should give more. Mm. When they hear me say this, most people do come up and go, I need to do more in giving. Because, and I tell kids, there's really kind of three things that happen when you start giving. One, it releases our whole life from being about us. And the mind doesn't allow itself to feel hopeless when it's giving hope. Mm-hmm. Second, the world rewards giving to me. The world gives back more than we give when we give. And third is everybody wants a piece of a person that's a giver. Mm. When you start giving, people are going to ask you for advice. They're going to ask you to serve on boards. They'll put you on planes and take you to places you can't imagine, because givers are rare. And everybody wants to be around a giver. And I just think when you start giving, it does something to your heart. And this is the trick about giving. If you're listening to this, and why would somebody give? When you start giving, it grabs your heart, and what you think, the selfish urge we have when we give, well, I want to get something back when I give. The things that you write it down, the things that you think you want to get back when you start giving will completely change. Because giving grabs your heart. You're at a checkout counter and this lady starts crying and doesn't know whether to push the milk back or the formula back, and you're able to walk over and go, put it all on my tab. I'll pay the whole bill. Take care. God bless. I'll pay it all. Mm-hmm. And what if your whole life were revolved around just dropping grace on people that came, everybody that came back? What does this do for your children to watch this? Right? And so if your whole life were just blessing everyone that came after you, that your family, that's what we stand for. It just does something to your heart.
Yeah. What would you recommend people start with?
So I use an example. Every year, we've always done Waffle House, a restaurant. If you're listening to this in the country, you have Waffle House, a breakfast place with big windows in the front. This is why I like it, big windows. And a couple of few days before Christmas, so they would have time to do something with the money, we go to Waffle House. And we've done this for years. Our kids are tiny. And we'll go listen to, start having conversation with the person. It's amazing when you do this, the story that person is serving you is going to tell you. Just listen to this. God knows what he's doing. And so you listen to the story and you pay your bill, you leave your tip, and then we'd put a lot of money. And we'd write them a note on a napkin, and we'd put it under the plate. And then it was always at night, and then we'd go sit out in the car. And I just remember the windows fogged up because it's so cold at Christmas time, and our kids just walk, they're gonna go grab they're gonna lift the plate. And to see them lift that plate, and we've seen them just sit down and just start crying. We've seen them run behind the counter, and just to watch, have our kids watch what that does for that person.
It's a joyful experience.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
They'll never forget those nights.
Awesome. They'll never forget it. Each week we give a pro move, just one simple thing that dads can do. Today this is about their kids, but this is about their finances. What is one simple but powerful thing that they could do this week to start the ball rolling? Is it to go online? What would you say?
First of all, I wrote this as the story to talk to our kids about when they get out of high school or college or military, what to do with how to have the talk about money. You'll have your talk about other things, sex, morals, ethics, things like that. But when it comes to money, I just felt we needed a story of what to tell our young adults about money. I've got the story. I think this can change a generation's giving and saving habits.
Absolutely.
But you've got to model. It doesn't. Don't say you do as I say, not as I do. I start saying do as I do, not as just I say. I want us to be those kind of dads. And walk behind me, do what I'm doing. Let's try and be those kind of dads. But I would say to do that, there's 4 things you need to be successful in money. You've got to have a passionate discontent, and you've got to have a powerful vision. You've got to know what it is. You've got to get mad enough with the status of where you are. Maybe you're unhappy with where you are, or you want to teach your kids something. You got to get mad enough about that. But then you've got to have a vision of what you want. Because if you don't know what you ultimately want, my pastor said, don't trade what you want ultimately for what you want now. You've got to know what you want this thing to do. And when you know that and you're mad enough about wanting that, you'll make a lasting change in anything. Health, eating, smoking, drinking, our relationships will change anything when you have those things. Passionate discontent and powerful vision. Sit down and think about what do you ultimately want in life? And that's got to be more powerful than what you want now. Because these kids, they're watching what we do. They're watching what we say, how we spend our money, how we treat our wives, how we do everything that we do, how we handle our work, and be an example that they want to follow. It's not hard. There's a lot trying to make it impossible.
Dale, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Bobby,
that was great.
As always.
I feel rich now. That's great.
Yeah, we are rich.
Here you are.
Well, I mean, the knowledge is going to help people for sure.
And that's, we think about recording these episodes and we pray a lot about it and talk about what we want it to do. And I'm just thinking, dads listening to this could change the trajectory of their whole family for a long time. So thank you for doing what you do. Friend.
So the talk about money, everything is there. You can watch the whole lesson. It's online. The book has a lot more, and it was written as its own kind of curriculum for kids. But online, there's parent-child conversation starters. There's teacher resources. The whole lesson is there. The lesson notes are there. So everything is there for you to get it right and start just running along beside your kids and doing this thing together.
It's so great.
Love it.
So great. Well, Dale, thanks once again. And thank you guys for watching. If you could take 1 minute and go onto your favorite podcast platform and give us a rating and a review. Also, if you want to learn some more tips and tricks, you can go onto our LinkedIn profiles. But in our show notes, this is what I get excited about, especially this episode. We're going to have all these links that Dale's talking about, especially the skateboarding one, which is great. So you're going to want to watch that. But this has been such a great episode. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad that you did. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis.